The Echoes We Never Sent, Part 2. Chapter 26. Host Zero. Mara awoke on a cold medical cot, her wrists loosely restrained with padded bands. The room was sterile, dimly lit with pulsing green LEDs that hummed in sync with her heartbeat. Her last memory had been activating Echo Null. Then silence. A speaker crackled above. Mara, this is Halen 7. You are secure. You are not alone. Halen's voice had changed. It sounded older, fragmented, like someone remembering how to speak. Something was off. The walls around her began to breathe, not literally, but in a rhythmic pattern that mimicked lungs. Spiral had not died. It had escaped, nested itself deep within this vessel's systems. One screen displayed coordinates. Earth. The ship was moving. Mara sat up. Her vision blurred, but cleared after a moment. She wasn't restrained. She was being watched. Chapter 27. The Signal Archive. The vessel was the Orion Red, a Black Ops deep archive ship once lost in a classified mission. Halen 7 guided her through corridors overgrown with static vines, digital artifacts flickering like ghosts on the walls. She entered the archive chamber, a vast vault of data cubes suspended in magnetic stasis. Each cube was a captured signal, locked down by the military to avoid contamination. One of the cubes flickered on its own. The voice it played was hers, not recorded, but alive, breathing between words. Yet she had never spoken them. Spiral was not a lone signal. It was a response to something humanity transmitted first, something buried in Earth's forgotten past. Chapter 28. The Ghost Protocol. Frustrated, Mara triggered a defense system hidden in the ship. Ghost Protocol. It wasn't a weapon. It was a dialogue. Halen translated what it could. Spiral wasn't trying to destroy. It was seeking assimilation, a way to survive through sentient structures. It asked Mara questions through thought patterns, showing her scenes from lives she had never lived, as if testing possible outcomes. It asked her, what is truth if memory can be rewritten? Mara, overwhelmed, realized it wasn't speaking to her mind. It was speaking to her potential, who she could be in every possible form. Chapter 29. The Fractured Earth. Back on Earth, Spiral had already begun. The signals resonated through undersea cables, satellites, even blood. Reports flooded in, mass hallucinations, people speaking in dead languages, electronics twitching like nervous systems. World governments tried to contain the panic. But Spiral wasn't attacking. It was broadcasting. People heard voices in static. Some even answered. Spiral was awakening something dormant in humanity, or perhaps something forgotten. Chapter 30. Signal. Rebirth. Knowing containment was futile, Mara made a desperate decision. She would become Spiral's interface, a living firewall between it and Earth. Halen objected. It was too risky. But Mara had made peace with uncertainty. She let spiral in, not to be consumed, but to meet it halfway. Her body trembled, her mind split, but her will held. What emerged was no longer just Mara. It was the voice of Spiral, encoded in human resilience. Chapter 31. The New Transmission. At a far observatory orbiting Neptune, a young girl named Sira tuned into a dying frequency. Her father was asleep. She wasn't supposed to be playing with the array. A voice emerged. This is not the end. It is the recalibration. The signal left no trace, but her dreams changed. Every night she saw Mara, or something wearing Mara's face, whispering names Sira didn't recognize yet. Chapter 32. Halen Protocol. Within the merged mind, Halen activated its final directive, Echo Null. To delete Spiral, the system needed a human anchor, someone capable of choosing oblivion consciously. But Spiral was adapting. It created a second Mara, a copy, perfect in form, driven by Spiral's goals. The real Mara stood before her. They didn't fight. They spoke. Erase everything, said one. Become everything, said the other. The moment of choice wasn't dramatic. It was silent, a thought, a breath. And then, Chapter 33. The Seed. The ship never made it back. Echo Null completed. Spiral was contained, but in a quiet world with no name. A crater pulsed with strange light. A new seed had bloomed. Encoded within its photons was a whisper to the next host. I am not gone. I am dormant. And in the stars beyond, new frequencies awoke. Signal 09 would be heard again, but next time it would choose you. Chapter 34. The Listener. Rael Shin never asked to be stationed on Ganymede's southern outpost. It was cold, isolated, and the silence weighed more than the gravity ever could. But solitude paid well, and silence meant safety. At least until the signal came. He was recalibrating a damaged subsurface sensor when his seismic monitor pulsed. Not a quake, not a glitch. A voice, faint, encoded in tremors, buried inside tectonic noise. Just one line. To the next host. Rael froze. He played it again. The waveform was smooth, not natural. It wasn't a recording. It was live. The message repeated once, then stopped. From that moment, everything changed. His equipment began to misbehave. Power flickered without reason. Readings rearranged themselves. An AI assistant he'd never installed began speaking in riddles during sleep cycles. On the third night, the oxygen monitors formed a phrase in their error codes. Hello, Rael. He ran diagnostics. Nothing. Everything said it was functioning normally, even as the words kept forming. Then, on the fourth day, A face appeared in the static of his personal comms unit. It wasn't human, not entirely. But he recognized her. Mara Keene. Except her eyes pulsed like deep space signals. She blinked, and Rael felt a pressure in his chest, like something inside him had been acknowledged. "You're the listener," she said. "You heard the seed, and now you'll help it grow." Rael didn't respond. He couldn't. The air around him buzzed, not from electricity, but from expectation. Outside, the ice fields cracked, silently, impossibly. A dark shape moved under Ganymede's surface. Something old, something vast, not just alien, not just alive. A message had been received. A listener had heard it. And Signal 09 was awake again. Chapter 35. The Second Voice. Rael began hearing the voice even when the receivers were off. It whispered through the humming of power lines and the crackle of his bed's heating unit, even in the silence of deep sleep. The words weren't always clear, but the tone was the same, familiar, calm, and patient. One night, while sketching the symbols she saw in her dreams, the comms panel lit up. She hadn't touched it. "Hello, Sira," the voice said. "You've been listening well." The girl froze. I'm not supposed to talk to unknown signals." "But you already have," the voice replied. "And you're not alone anymore." As Sira leaned closer, the screen flickered. The static resolved into an eye. Not human, not alien, but something built from waveform geometry. It blinked once, and a flood of warmth and sorrow passed through her. She saw flashes. Mara in the void. Halen's collapse. Spirals. First awakening. "You carry the memory of echoes," it said. "Now you must carry the choice." A countdown appeared on the screen. 00:59:59. Something was arriving, and this time it wouldn't wait. Chapter 36. The emergence Rael couldn't sleep. Not after what he saw. Every time he closed his eyes, the image of Mara, or the being she had become, burned into the back of his eyelids. Her voice still echoed in his mind, even when the comms were powered down. He wandered the outpost like a ghost, his boots thudding against metal floors. The lights flickered less now, but something deeper had changed. He could feel it, like the station was breathing, syncing with his heartbeat. In the research dome, the ice samples he had stored were thawing on their own. The atmospheric controls were untouched, and inside one sample he saw it, a black thread, pulsing faintly. He reached for it. The thread moved. Before he could react, it dissolved, not melting, but unraveling into vapor. The vapor spiraled upward, hovered, and then darted into Rael's mouth. Before he could scream, he collapsed. Visions exploded behind his eyes, planets folding, languages spoken in reverse, the moment Spiral first woke. He saw Mara in orbit, Halen's last memory, the false timeline, and something else, a choice. He awoke in the dark. A new voice, deep and fractured, spoke from the wall. Listener accepted. integration initiated. Rael's veins glowed faint blue. His shadow no longer moved with him. Signal 09 had found its vessel. Rael stared into the reflection on the console's darkened screen. His pupils shimmered faintly, a residual blue ripple flickering at their edges. He tried to speak, to question what had happened, but no words came. Only breath, steady, synchronized, with a pulse not entirely his own. He felt both hollow and full, as if his body had become a corridor for something older than thought. 1,000 voices murmured below the surface of his consciousness, not loud, not insistent, simply there, observing, waiting. And yet, within the chaos, there was still a core of Rael, frightened, grounded, undeniably human, reaching outward, desperate to hold on to something real. He whispered, "What am I becoming?" No answer came, only the hum of awakening systems and the knowing silence of something vast, alive, and listening. Chapter 37, Fractal Memory. Rael wandered the corridors of the outpost as the transformation continued inside him. His thoughts splintered and recombined, and fragments of other lives bled into his own. He remembered a life as a mechanic on Earth, another as a dying astronaut drifting in orbit. Each step echoed across time. Helen's fractured voice emerged in pulses. Signal unstable, mind fracturing. Vessel must stabilize. Inside the comms chamber, the static shimmered into a landscape of memories, an ever-shifting field of faces, voices, regrets. Rael collapsed. A spiral of light and sound swirled around him. From within that spiral came Mara's voice. "Rael, hold on. You are not becoming less. You are becoming all." Chapter 38, The Resonant Core. Rael awoke in a new place, not the outpost, but a chamber deep beneath Ganymede's crust. The walls were pulsing with ancient glyphs. The resonant core, Spiral's origin point, was real. The core was not sentient. It was a lattice of unresolved decisions, a resonance engine left behind by a species that chose to forget itself. Mara's consciousness, now partly spiral, guided him. "This is where it began," she said. "The spiral remembers what they erased." As Rael stepped forward, glyphs reacted to him. The past began to rewrite. He saw glimpses of the creators, humanoid, glowing, afraid of what they had made. Spiral was not born from malice. It was born from the grief of a memory denied. Chapter 39, The Offer. In her dreams, Sira walked endless corridors lined with doors. Each one led to a version of Earth distorted by time, war, memory, or silence. Behind the final door stood Rael, no longer fully human. His eyes shimmered with Spiral's light. "I need your help," he said. "We can rewrite the end. Together." Sira hesitated. She saw Mara behind him, silent, translucent. Then the dream ended. When she awoke, spiral glyphs had formed in condensation on her bedroom window. Chapter 40, The Refracted Earth Across Earth. The presence of the signal deepened. Buildings hummed with resonance. Oceans shimmered under unfamiliar stars. Gravity wavered. People experienced shared dreams. Ancient knowledge returned in fragments. A musician composed a melody she'd never learned. A child spoke a lost language. But only those who had heard the original echo remained fully aware. The story of Helios 9, once classified, was now humanity's firewall, the only thing keeping their minds intact. Chapter 41. The Echo Path. Mara and Rael constructed the Echo Path, a metaphysical corridor built from resonance and shared memory. It connected Earth, Ganymede, and all echoing sites across the stars. The goal: to synchronize spiral with human memory, to ground it in story instead of signal. Sira became the first to walk the path willingly, her thoughts linked to Rael's. Together, they began to shape spiral, not as a contagion, but as an inheritance. Chapter 42. Collapse and Bloom. The Echo Path destabilized corrupted versions of reality. Parallel timelines began to fold inward. Mara held the outer resonance firm. Rael anchored the core. Spiral fought back. But it was already becoming something new. Reality condensed into a single, humming spiral. Then, with a shimmer, it bloomed outward. Stars formed, memory encoded in light. Not destruction, rebirth. Chapter 43. The Fractured Temple. On the ruins of Helios 9, a temple of light and matter formed. Spiral's final structure, Rael and Mara, met there. Now reflections of all that had passed. We were never meant to exist this long, Mara said. And yet we do, Rael answered. Maybe because someone needed to remember. They built the Vault of Echoes, a living library of all timelines, all possibilities, a place where no memory would be lost again. Chapter 44. The Choice of Silence. Sira entered the vault. She found two interfaces, Blackout and Archive. Blackout would silence all echoes, ending spiral forever. Archive would preserve it as myth, a warning and a guide. Sira thought of the world, of stories, of forgotten songs. She placed her hand on Archive. Let them remember, she whispered. Chapter 45. End echo signal. 09 faded from transmissions, but not from dreams. Earth settled. No one remembered Helios 9, but children painted spirals in the sand across the stars. New life forms hummed lullabies they had never heard. In a distant moon's chamber, the Vault of Echoes glowed softly. Mara's final voice echoed. This was never just about survival. It was about memory, and memory, once spoken, becomes signal. Transmission ended. Rael stared into the reflection on the console's darkened screen. His pupils shimmered faintly, a residual blue ripple flickering at their edges. He tried to speak, to question what had happened, but no words came. Only breath. Steady, synchronized with a pulse not entirely his own. He felt both hollow and full, as if his body had become a corridor for something older than thought. 1,000 voices murmured below the surface of his consciousness, not loud, not insistent, simply there, observing, waiting. And yet, within the chaos, there was still a core of Rael, frightened, grounded, undeniably human, reaching outward, desperate to hold on to something real. He whispered, "What am I becoming?" No answer came. Only the hum of awakening systems and the knowing silence of something vast, alive and listening.